Here for Poisound. And here we go. Jumping into the fourth game. Fourth game? First game.
Yeah, and this is an Onslaught mirror. And listen, Celia, I have a confession to make.
Go for it.
This is a deck I'm gonna take a lot of credit, right? It got optimized by other people, but I was saying for months that non-devotion Onslaught is the way, because you have a few pirates which benefit from armor, just like this raider that's in hand by being down on the board. Obviously, King Bran was like a really popular way to go, and then you were playing non-devotion with like a Herald. But the things you get in this non-devotion, the Mushy Truffle, the Sunset Wanderers, are just cards that are so fantastic. And really, the main card that you care about is this Terror of the Seas. And already we can see Chase has no Terror of the Seas in hand. Poisound does, and that could prove to be quite important in the mirror matchup.
I absolutely agree with you. Yeah, and I think with the introduction of Muzzle as well, it's making this non-devotion version a lot more tempting to play, to like not only have point slam, but also have controllers are two really big things for SK to have access to. And we know, alumni can be nice to deal with. So that's why that bit of control that Onslaught has is very, very good. And I would like to note, though, that the difference in the two lists, like the golds are quite similar, but we actually have Chase doing an interesting skip. He's playing a Maxi and an On-Crate Raider in the 5 provision slots where you normally see the melee row ships.
Yeah.
So that's something that Chase just doesn't have at all. And I think that one is quite interesting. So valuing a bit of consistency there and the Raider.
Yeah, and both players so far haven't been able to get any of this damage carryover. So if you're not familiar with Onslaught, it has a passive, basically it's changed massively in the last couple of months. It has 2 orders to deal 3 damage, but also whenever you damage a card like you just saw there, and you turn it from being not damaged to damaged, so when basically your opponent's cards turn to red health, it gives armor to every pirate and ship in your hand. So Morkvarg now has 1 extra armor. This Kraken Crate from Chase also has 1 extra armor. But really the cards that benefit from that most are Terror of the Seas, as I said, and also the long ships, the 5-point ships you can see in hand, because that armor translates directly into points. But it can also be nice on other cards. This Kraken Crate is more difficult to remove. Obviously, there's a lot of random damage in the meta and things like that. So like bombardments and whatnot can really help. And yeah, interestingly, the Terror of the Seas is in the hand of Poisound, not Chase. So that's definitely, it could be a big deal as this one goes on.
Yeah, one of those cards that you definitely want to find. Poisound is looking at a really nice hand. And Chase here also looking pretty happy with that Wanderer. Like, Poisound can't play too much into this round either without having that Wanderer come out. So we do see pretty convenient passes for both players here.
Yeah, it was interesting to see the Whale Harpooner there as well, being able to move the longship from the back row to the front row, really denying any carryover development. So Whale Harpooner, not a card you see in everybody's deck, but you could certainly see the value of it. And here's also the benefit of the red ships, which only one of the players is playing here, Poisound. These are also going to be getting armor, and you can also play them proactively. And of course, every time your opponent plays a card, you're going to be giving armor to all those other pirates and ships in your hand.
Yeah, definitely pretty useful. If your opponent potentially has a lot of those pirates and a lot of those ships with armor, they're not going to maybe do too much. So Poisound is going to head there, mulliganing one of them, keeping that Peller. I believe Peller is not doing very much in this particular matchup, but that's all right.
Yeah,
Let's see. Maybe that's a dry pass.
There is the wombo combo of Peller after you muzzle.
So that is true.
Could happen.
Get a spicy target. Could happen. The hidden power of Peller. Maybe we'll see.
Yeah, that's it.
That'd be very exciting.
I've got the Peller sat next to me still as well, so he's doing his thing. Now, one card I actually am a massive fan of in this Pirates deck, which neither player have, is the Fisher King. He's the other guy I have on the wall next to me, so any excuse to play the Fisher King. Maxi is the card that's gone for instead, and I mean, we're just going straight to the long round 3, but the key difference is one player has Mushy Truffle on the board.
Exactly. That is carryover points for Poisound that unfortunately Chase does not have access to, but did play out that Maxi to take a peek into the deck and see what's up. Also, armor carryover on the Terror of the Seas. Very useful there for Poisound, while Chase did draw that a little bit later on, and now it's just about finding those points and those provisions from your deck. Morkvarg, both in hand for both players, good cards to find. I think Chase is looking for the Heat Wave, unless it did come down there. But I do believe that heat wave for. Never mind, it did come down, didn't it? No.
I'm not 100% sure. I don't think we've seen it. I don't think we've seen it.
Yeah, I don't think we did. All right.
Heatwave can be a nice option. Just to clean up crack on crate, but there's also other things you can do, like you could leader charge it in muzzle here, for example. Also, if your Terror of the Seas has gained enough armor early on, it's a nice answer, and it does look like that is going to be the case for Chase. Of course, also giving armor to all his other pirates while using that leader passive.
Imagine having that Peller here
I
now.
know,
That'd be so sweet. But yeah, that is right. No heatwave, but still there are ways of using your leader charges and dealing with the Croc. Poisound nicely playing down the ship that will get a decent amount of value in a long round as it starts pinging off. A little bit of bloodthirst there. Wartburg coming down on the ship as well as the leader charge, really respecting this. What if you don't draw something tall removal heatwave for that wonder that Poisound has?
Yeah, it's a really good point. Morkvarg, instead of being used to answer this sunset, does just demand enough of an answer to remove it straight away. Obviously, playing into that, it's not just 1 point per turn, it's also 1 armor on every single pirate and ship, which is just going to take away from points from your removal cards and things like that. So it's an interesting decision from Chase, and he's going to be hoping to find some sort of heat wave or spores, whatever it might be that he has in his deck. I don't have the deck list open because of
no
FPS
spores, but
situation.
there is the heat wave, of
Right.
course, that could be found with the Wanderer, and Berna still having 2 chances of drawing that heat wave. So, you know, we just got to respect the ship when it comes down. It's interesting, Chase decided not to play those ships himself, but he does respect them. So we'll see here. Does the heat wave find its place here in round 3? Does it come down on that Sunset Wonder after Chase gets to see a couple of more cards that are in the deck list? And look at that. There it is. Maxi, of course, has some information for Chase. I believe he knew that was about to happen. So the more cards kind of safe to take there.
Yeah, and Heatwave is just a nice tool punish on Sunset Wanderers, but Sunset Wanderers, even then, is still an insanely good card that does demand that answer. Both players making it synergize with the discard package, the drawing of cards with cards like Burner Brand, etc. And it's going to be a really interesting how to see how this one plays out, of course, with just 4 points between them. But Poisound does have a couple of leader charges still available as well.
Yep, 2 leader charges left. Can decide what to do with those later. Taking the ship here, deciding that that is a little bit too much of a threat, kind of the same reasoning that Chase had behind removing, aggressively removing the ship from Niquise. And look at this Peller. Ha! Look at this Peller. It's gonna come down, Purify the Craw.
Yeah, like it looks like a stinker card, but the muzzle Peller synergy we talked about actually coming through. The Peller just never disappoints. He's called the MV Peller for a reason. Some things never change.
There we go, Coral coming out. Not a great pull here. The ship is not going to do too much in this short of a round for Poisound, so it goes right back into the graveyard, away from the hand, I guess. And here comes the leader charges as well.
Yeah, and it's interesting. We've talked about these red ships. They're really popular cards to play in this deck, but they aren't also always popping off too much. It's actually one of them was discarded, and we did see the other one just gave Chase a lot of value to his removal cards because this leader charge really answered an engine. And while it's only a 5 provision card, Chase has decided not to play these, and that probably just means he's getting a couple of extra provisions maybe in his golds and things like that. And 7 points on the Terror of the Sea. I mean, you didn't really need much more. Anything more is overkill. That is going to do the job, clean up that Raider. But the Peller Purify here on Crack and Crate, you are going to get to use that order and also play the Terror of the Seas maybe next to it if that is what you want to do.
Yeah, don't know. We can't see the armor on the Terror of the Seas, but it should be less than what Poisound had on his Terror. But yeah, Heatwave still come down for a great bit of points. Both Truffles have been unused here, and the Rain is also still taking on Poisound's side, now playing these armored units into it to hopefully negate a little bit of those Rain points happening there.
It's a really close game here. 13 points in it. The Heat Wave makes it even closer. The Rain is still ticking. It does hit a couple of points of armor. Could have hit Coral on the Scalp. Might that have made the difference? Let's wait and see. Crack on Crate still has a ping remaining as well. And the Invader's armor going to be placed in either row. It doesn't matter here too much. Both players
Rain
with
a row.
the Mushy Truffle to click as well.
There we go, boosting up some of these cards. Now, you might guess that there is a terror in Chase's hands. You don't want to
Yeah.
play too much into it. That's exactly what Poison does while keeping everything at a 7. 10 points of armor on the Terror of the Seas. Quite a bit to remove. One of these 7s is going to go, along with the Truffle coming down. This is one heck of a nail biter, but the Order ability comes out and seals the deal in favor of Chase. Game number 1.
And Chase takes it, and I have to say, I think the key thing was this decision to just Morkvarg the boat, doing really well, just keeping the games flowing nice and quickly today. It's been great.
Yeah, I like that Poison and Chase have matching little borders going on here. I think I really enjoy that. It all fits so perfectly. They were prepared for this duel. And speaking of duels, we're ready to do so because we are queuing the next game. And Poison here on blue coin, jamming out the old alumni. Of course, a classic to use on blue coin. Chase responding with Syndicate. Does this feel like deja vu to you, Spessy?
It does a little bit, yeah. I will say the one thing I'm noticing that's very different is Chase's opening hand just doesn't have as much control as we've been seeing in some of the other ones. We've been seeing Philippas and Professors and Freak Shows and Horsons and all sorts. For Chase, though, he's only really got access to Professor plus this Royal Decree, whatever that can pull, so is a little bit limited. Does as well have a couple of poisons. Crystal Skull available for Poisound, though, to maybe try and play around that. Also has the Siege, the double Siege Master Vengeance play, which is going to be a lot of thinning and a lot of points.
It's definitely going to be really nice for Poison making up that point gap. Just starting off chill here. Nothing to worry about yet. And the Professor sees his opportunity, comes down there perfectly, takes care of that. 4-point engine, one of those control tools that Chase does have access to and is going to use it right now. No carryover, hopefully for later. That's what he's hoping for.
What we've also been seeing, Sealy, is we've been seeing these Syndicate players slamming all these golds in round 1, and then the Northern Realms player losing on even, but then still being able to deliver the goods in round 3. And we might be seeing a different style of game because Chase just doesn't even have that option of maybe slamming as many golds as we've been seeing. But there is the Vengeance, 2 Siege Masters thinned, a leader charge as well to just get that instant, almost Zeal effect on the Vengeance. And Chase, instead of maybe playing like another control tool, just goes for just a calm tax collector.
Yeah, calm tax collector it is, while Poison's put a lot of points on the board and continuing to build those students, protecting that from any kind of poison happening. Also, the winch exists. That's very cute. You can play that potentially into a Peller if those poisons would come down for Poisound. Couple of tools to deal with everything here, but no access to Letitia, though, in round 1.
Yeah, and Chase also just going to be wanting to develop that 9 coins of carryover, or 9 coins in the bank, getting the ship, and then as much carryover as possible. The problem is against alumni, like, you can't just pass against them either, because you are just then going to allow them to stick on the board. But I suppose if you're not going to remove them, he might just decide to do that anyway. So definitely a different style of round 1 than we've been seeing in these matchups so far.
Yeah, the Professor did come off really strong, kind of indicating that Chase was ready to fight for the round, but then maybe on second evaluation you realize you have pretty limited options, especially knowing that Poisound did draw that Refards round 1. You kind of have to potentially change your strategy a little bit when you're Chase.
An interesting decision there to go for the Marguerite to lock the tax collector. There was the option of going Winch and then playing the Peller, but might just want to save onto that Peller until a poison is played or a bounty, something like that, which will play for more points there. Winch as well could be used on Shani later on. And there's the Salamander Mage to just put this Aretusa student down at 2 points, being a little bit more worrying for Poisound to leave that card there.
Yeah, we're going to have to see what Poisound is going to do. His hand is quite committal. We're looking at Shani and Gerhardt after this winch comes down, which interestingly does protect that student, just like you said, put her out of harm's way, and then the Peller can sweep in, clear up a poison in case there's something like that. We do see Decree coming down here. It could be going for, Philippa it is. Bank is full. Perfect. Yoink. Take away Poisound's points here, and still in the race of winning round 1.
Yeah, stealing the student is just a really, really nice play. Of course, you're just denying that patience carryover, but also you're able to use that yourself this round to try and then win on even, which is exactly what we've been seeing lots of the Syndicate players doing, but then losing that round 3. Now, Chase hasn't committed as many golds as some of the other Syndicate players, but has also allowed the Northern Realms player to maybe develop some more carryover. So excited to see this one. And this is masterful from Poisound.
Perfect Peller
Using the
timing.
winch to protect the student and then just delaying the vengeance to time the Peller with the poison. Peller just stays winning.
Yeah. All right. Hoping for potentially amphibious assault here. There's a couple of things that Poisound is missing from this round 1 hand. Let's see what Eastrid can do for him as he already is getting used here. Potentially worried about a Morels or something else. And there's an alumni that we saw in hand. Now, imagine if that Eastred and the Reforged ping would have pinged down that student at 8 power. The odds were very low, but I like that Poison was kind of going for it, maybe looking to muzzle it back.
Yeah, not an ideal muzzle there, just playing for 8 tempo. Of course, if you steal a 6-point card, then it's going to be 12 tempo, but you could also maybe hit an engine or something like that. But not the ideal muzzle, and this is not really the typical card you do see included for these Northern Realms players, but does allow him to get out of the round without losing on even, which is the first time we've seen that happen in this matchup so far today.
Not sure what the patience situation right now is on this student, but I believe it's getting quite high.
Yeah.
So Chase should not have a problem taking it here, playing the Sea Jackal. And there comes 6 points of damage. Does have to spend twice. And moving on to round number 2. Winning the round. Syndicate has control. Didn't win on even, but also did not spend too many of those provisions yet.
Yeah, and also the muzzle going when Freak Show hasn't been played is really interesting, because this Freak Show, of course, with Jackpot can be put up to 6 power with 1 armor, which means a Boiling Oil can't deal with it. It's going to force a Selkirk, and really the muzzle, that's where that card would be most ideally used, but instead had to be played in round 1 to just try and get out without losing on even. Only 2 coins of carryover, though, for the Syndicate players, so that's a positive for Poisound that he did nullify some of that carryover. Still no sign of Amphibious Assault either.
No, not seeing Amphibious Assault or Natalis, which tutors Amphibious Assault by round 2, is really a nightmare for whoever is playing and piloting Northern Realms. Not what you like to see.
No, and Chase here might be put off by that fact that Assault wasn't played in round 1, because that if Poisound has access to that Assault, it's almost like a free gold card that you can trade. Your opponent plays Siggy, you play Assault, and then you still have that Echo ability for round 3. But Poisound not having that Assault here and getting bled could prove to be quite disastrous. Kurt here as well, being able to be used with the bounty. This is just going to mean that this Freak Show can deal even more damage on its first turn down on the board, because you can clean up that bounty and get 5 more points.
And we see full coins in the bank, as well as leader ability still hasn't been used. So Poison's kind of thinking about what cards he's okay with sacrificing. He is expecting the Freak Show, I believe. And here it is.
Yeah, and that bounty almost extending the bank, not needing to use a leader charge, being able to hold on to that leader. The shakedown isn't ideal here for Chase, I have to say. And the Savola, we did see a Salamandra Mage in round 1, and I believe it was tributed, which means that that costs enough coins where this Savola should be getting the King of Beggars.
Yeah.
If he really just wants to go for it. Of course, he would like a better card than the Shakedown. Doesn't have to play it as well. Could just try and tempo out with a leader plus Savola, and then just hold on to this Shakedown and mulligan it away in round 3. In fact...
Yeah, there's the pass. Wow.
Okay.
It's interesting because I think Poison gets to save his cards here pretty nicely.
Yeah, 7 points is all that he needs.
Depending a bit on this Alumni, yeah.
Alumni shouldn't have a Zeal because of the Philippa. You would imagine that was probably taken at Patience 3 to deny that Zeal. So you would imagine this Alumni doesn't have Zeal and will need a leader charge to get there. So no leader charge is available for Poisound, but only 1 carryover in terms of the coins for Chase. Does have, of course, though, his Jackpot. No Assault, a big deal. No Chapter of Wizards either there to try and get that location carryover.
Very big.
Not gone ideally for Poisound in round 2 here.
No, not ideally, but still able to save the provisions and maybe still a lot of output in round 3. It depends a little bit on these draws here. And Chase, of course, again, saving up for that short round, it can be very good for Chase and Syndicate, and that's what he aimed to do.
I was wondering there if Chase was going to take that last risky
Yeah,
mulligan. King of Beggars still
maybe
in
you
the
smell
deck.
a shark, some blood in the water. Yeah,
Decided not
maybe
to.
you
I
do.
would have gone for it and drawn King of
Ah,
Beggars.
you gotta risk it for the biscuit sometimes. But maybe Chase gets the biscuit anyway, and he decided he doesn't need to risk it for it. We'll see. We'll see. It's gonna be a tight game, of course. Yeah, Poison does still have points. Still has an alumni. Goes for the rune word here. A couple of options for Poison to pick.
Yeah, and
Alumni is probably still pretty decent, but you can't protect it from Immortals, for example.
this leader charge that was committed in round 2 to get there,
Mm.
of course, no zeal on the alumni, so the zeal was had to be used. The final one did just mean that there wasn't the option of using a zeal leader charge just to boost the engine down by 2, so Morils was able to just use its deploy just to clean that up. So that leader charge, more than 2 points, even though there isn't like maybe a great target for it in this round 3. There might prove to be some decent ones, but yeah, more than just the 2 points than it would appear. And playing a Peach, not ideal here. Can combine it with leader though to get it ticking. A
And
couple
get
of
the ship
poisons
out
as
of
well.
forest. Yeah, definitely not bad. All right, let's see what's going to happen here. Amphibious Assault going for that alumni, of course, for Poisound. Whenever he decides to play it, there's still the Gerhardt, but you do have to play around Morils. That could still come down. You can't really hold on to it, greet it. We do see Poison in Chase's hand as well, so you don't really want to give too good of a poison target either, I guess.
Going for the second Spellweaver. Boiling Oil, not a spell, so they're not going to trigger this, but the mages, of course, will give you some extra charges if you were to go for one of those. And Amphibious Assault. Also, this alumni, plus 1 point from Istrid as well, which is always nice.
Yep, not playing too tall, not playing into those poisons right now, but the point swing is still going to be big coming down from Chase here with the Savala that we see right now. And of course, King of Beggars. Couple of coins to spend here, and Poison has to catch up quite a bit here.
Yeah, 20-point game, but Practice Makes Perfect can trigger these Spellweavers twice because it's a spell card itself. It's playing a mage as well from the deck. Similarly, Gerhardt can trigger these 3 times with the Practice Makes Perfect, therefore. There is still the Student, though, in the deck. He would love to have avoided this. That's for certain.
Yeah, this is definitely not the way you hope that your alumni game will go, Poison. Unfortunately, being hit with the curse of NR and these draws in the game, but is there still a chance? Gerhardt can come down for a couple of points, but the poison is on, currently sitting on a 9 power unit, which is quite big.
Chase, interestingly, decides to spend with the King of Beggars here. Now, really good call, because it did switch off his Peach, which maybe lost him a point, but he just wouldn't have had a spender for these other coins, and the King of Beggars would have died to the Spellweavers. So Gerhardt coming down to on Practice Makes Perfect is going to be a whole bunch of points.
What's it going to go for? Practice Makes Perfect?
Could
Teleportation, you could reset your your poisoned unit, I suppose. And Practice Makes Perfect would have an alumni without Zeal coming out.
And in fact uses it on the patient student because it was poisoned, denying the poison value, can kill the King of Beggars, and it's just a 3-point finisher here for Chase. It's so close, but it's just not enough.
That's definitely a good call on Poison's part. Chase unfortunately got stuck with these poisons, maybe hoping that the Gerhardt wasn't in the mix because there was a couple of ways to get that poison out of the board, and barely winning the game.
They're keeping it up. I was getting worried. I was looking at that timer, but no, we're here.
Yeah.
We've got
We're here.
Inspired Zeal from Chase. Of course, we've just seen Poisound win with his NR. Can Chase follow suit? Now, this is probably the toughest matchup we've seen for NR so far. We've seen NR into Syndicate every time so far, but this is NR into Pirates. They have a lot of removal with the ships, the leader ability. They have a Pella if you dare to play Defender, which Chase does not. They have maybe Heat Waves, Muzzles, but there's not actually that many control tools in the opening hand for Poisound here.
No, not too much, but you can flex a little bit with those leader charges. Use your range throw ships there to have a little bit of reach. And as we see, the Peller does get kicked here. not much to do in this round one. Chase, on the other hand, what do you think about this? Chase is kind of not going for the same Siege Master thinning, I believe, at all. He's
Oh,
playing these
wow.
Marines instead and a Dahlia in that 10 provision slot where Defender would normally be. So yeah, just not really maybe trusting this thinning and that you can draw those little Siege cards to go along with it. It's interesting.
Yeah, these cards are really good because they are the Siege Masters. They're 2 free points if you do play a Siege Engine. But there also aren't that many Siege Engines you want to play. There's, of course, Vengeance. But when you see that Chase is also playing the Siege Ladder, I am a bit surprised to not see it. But there's so many good bronzes in Northern Realms. He's gone Devotion, so he has the Marines. He's also playing double casting contests. So he really is hoping that his alumni do get a lot of value. Interestingly,
Well,
though, he doesn't have any
where are
access
they?
to them.
Exactly. The students are unfortunately missing from this hand. Casting contest, also a card that we don't really have seen in many of these Anon lists today. But here it is. This pass really indicating that, something's up. Something's a bit fishy here. What's going on, Chase? Poisound's gonna, take advantage out of that, I suppose. Although now he's sitting at 6 cards, kind of has to use a leader charge here.
Yeah, has to use a leader if he's wanting to just take it here. Of course, if he's looking to bleed into round 2, he's going to want to make sure that he's not down multiple cards. So if he fancies his chances in a long round, Poisound here can just play another card. Then maybe play Mushy Truffle on the dry pass in round 2 for that 6 carryover. However, if he feels that he needs to bleed this matchup, he is going to have to commit a leader charge, which is also really valuable. So Poisound, it's not exactly gone perfectly here. And this is where something like a Burner Brand, instead of a Scald, obviously 2 points more, Coral as well, would have just saved him a leader charge.
Oof. Taking the leader charge though, just preparing for that bleed. I think Poison just wants to utilize the situation that Chase is in right now, but I could have definitely seen the long round without spending that leader charge. So a bit of a disadvantage there because now the damage reach, there's one leader charge that was used. So maybe you can't kill everything you want to in round 2, where, to be fair, if Chase draws well, he still has time to set up that carryover for round 3 instead. And, the draws. But there's a card I'm not seeing, and that's Amphibious Assault, and no Natalis. The pattern is repeating. It's happening again, is it? Yep.
Yeah, and Poisound, having obviously used that leader charge strongly. And this is it! This is where Dora Grey is better than Margarita. This exact moment. He is playing Devotion though, Chase, but yeah.
That's the reason. But it's true, you don't miss that 1 point on the lock if you do slap a Doragary in there and go non-Devotion. But yeah.
Yeah, and also
the fury of the ship.
The big benefit, of course, of the Devotion in Northern Realms is you do get the Marines. So the fact that there's double casting contests from Chase does make sense when he's playing these Marines. Of course, 4 points of boost on the order can help keep a lot of things alive. And of course, you can get these off Shani as well. He hasn't had any students, but he could find one off the Rune Word. Does manage to find one. You'd imagine he's going to be taking that without even thinking twice.
There it is. You got to be thinking, does the Siege Master thinning missing from this list kind of bite Chase a little bit here with those Marines? Of course, the Marines are nice targets for Shani to resurrect later and does proc the Refards. But, if you miss out on your students, you're not happy either.
And
so having thinning and consistency could potentially be a good thing for Chase here, but Refards is yet to come down, so that can come down along with some Marines and the Winch. Well, I guess there's only one Marine, actually.
Poisound, yeah, something's gone a little bit pear-shaped for Poisound here. He used the leader charge to threaten the bleed, and really what ended up happening was now this leader charge was wasted. He could have had an extra leader charge going into round 3. Okay, he got his Truffle carryover, but equally Chase was able to develop some Banod student carryover. This shield really just made things very, very difficult for him to deal with. He didn't have a clean way of just removing this card in one turn.
Yeah, like what Chad is saying here, that Letitia is showing up to a normal work day, and she's like, where are my students? They're not here. But here they are in round 3. Finally, she can have her lesson, have a little bit of a lesson in patience. We'll see. And yeah, like you said, Poison is missing that leader charge. Does have a few other tools here. Terror of the Seas. You do have a Croc that has to be dealt with by Selskirk. And Heatwave as well, coming in clutch, I think.
Yeah, and this is where Muzzle as well is just so fantastic. But unfortunately for Poisound, it is not in his hand. It is a really clean answer to Leticia. Of course, Chase has the option of playing around that with something like a leader charge, but that also just opens him up to, playing into a better Heat Wave or whatever it might be, or a Terror of the Sea. So decides not to play around Muzzle, and Poisound is going to be really sad that Muzzle is not in his hand. And of course, doesn't have double leader charge either to just clean this up if he wanted to take that option as well.
Yeah, things are definitely not optimal here. Chase still not seeing Amphibious Assault or Natalis. I mean, maybe those rewards will make it happen, but it's round 3 and no Natalis, no Amphibious Assault. It's really odd. The odds of that are quite small of happening. And then Poison, on the other hand, is also missing a key card, I believe. He's not seeing Fiducia here. And like you said, Muzzle as well, not here.
Yeah, and Leticia clicked before she is killed with 2 students down on the board, allowing Chase, he combined his Chapter of Wizards as well as his Vengeance there to get 3 engines down on the board in the same turn, clicking Leticia as well. So while 1 engine is gone, she has also just played for some nice value to give more patience to these students, obviously helping him get to the Zeal. Here's the only leader charge left for Poisound, of course, combining it with the ship. Does use the Onslaught first before playing the ship, because that just gives 1 more point of armor to the ship before it comes down here.
And here is Shawnee also coming down, bringing that student right back up. Hopefully getting more of those sweet patience points.
Yeah, and I think that should be the Zeal now active on the Alumni. I do believe they're both at Patience 4. And this is what Shani does so well. And while we've seen some players playing Necromancy, you get to resurrect. Oh, the one at the back is at 3. The one at the front is at 4. Thank you very much to our Observer Snake here.
Yeah.
Because what this Shani does is you get to pick the tallest Patience engine, similar with Necromancy. And it's guaranteed 1 carryover pretty much. Because it can't be answered and it ticks straight away. So... Shani, of course, just a good value card, but that's a big reason we've seen some players playing Necromancy as well.
Yeah, the Necromancy is like a baby Shani to get those seals going if things go a little bit wrong. Here, Poison's just utilizing his Gutting Slash, getting rid of yet another student, but oh, another one. They're all here now in round 3. Poison really missing out on that muscle. Would be lovely to find it for him, because right now this Bad student is... at 5 patience, definitely not something to disregard, and the alumni haven't even showed up yet.
Yeah, and there we have it. There is the Fiducia, but there's still no sign of that Muzzle. Gutting Slash as well, able to deal 6 damage with Bloodthirst. It's just such a fantastic card for 4 removal. There is 1 more card draw for Poisound when the Sunset Wanderers comes through, but again, deciding to discard the blue ship, the red ship, for a 5 provision card, that does just seem like a little bit of a waste. They haven't been too good so far in this series.
Yeah, another thing is that Poisound has unfortunately delayed this Kroch by quite a bit, having to fight all of these engines coming down from Chase, so that's not really what you want to see from Kroch either. You'd like to kind of get that on the board fast and going. But here is Fukutia ready to resurrect the Longship so that it does indeed still get a little bit of value.
And here's the Sunset Wanderers, the 15
It's a mighty play.
It finds a Pirate, which it is going to get some value. It's going to get a lot of armor, but the armor doesn't turn directly into points necessarily with this Invader. So you can play next to Kraken Crate if he is still on the board. He's probably going to be answered maybe with the Selkirk, you would imagine. There's not a lot of other things to remove. I guess there is this red ship, which will also be an option as well.
And Chase here getting ready to refarge pretty soon, so the Heat Wave does come down here from Poisound, just making sure that Chase doesn't pull another card from his deck that could make it or break it. Not letting that happen.
So we've got
but no cross still.
Patience,
He's still sitting there.
Patience 2 on this mage at the front row, the Merlin, I like to call him, and the student in the back, chilling at 7. And yeah, crack on crate. It's probably time 3 pirates or ships in hand to give armor to all of these. But again, you're not turning any of this armor into points apart from on the Terror of the Seas. And at the moment, there isn't a really tall card. We don't know the armor on the Terror of the Seas, but it is going to be pretty high. And of course, you don't really get any value from that. There's no difference from killing a 7 and overkilling anything. You don't get any bonus points if you overkill. So not looking like Poisound's getting too much value from the crack. It is just going to get answered quite clearly. Here comes Gerhardt. The red ship is giving some points off still. Into practice makes perfect. The alumni still no zeal.
Yep,
Can
no
the
zeal
Terror
on
of the
that one. It's
Seas
gonna
clean
have
this
to
up?
wait. We don't know how much armor it has right now, but it could very well come up and clean it. Krah's gonna have to wait for his turn. 12 armor. And Krah, of course, giving it even more. So, not coming in and dealing with that alumni here.
Yeah, you know, I said Selkirk is going to answer the crack on crate. I kind of...
Never mind.
Yeah. I underestimated the power of the Onslaught passive, you know, just sticking in his hand that whole turn. We were saying, he's sound this for a long time, but it makes a bunch of sense. It's gaining armor. He is, of course, a pirate himself. And this now is... This Invader suddenly is looking a lot stronger than I really gave it credit for off the Sunset Wanderers. You could even argue it might be better than something like a Muzzle. It's not that many... It's not going to be much worse, that's for sure.
Yeah, it can definitely still do a thing or two here. I mean, Muzzle would still steal that range row student. It looks very tempting, but here is Selkirk, and he's just chilling because really, like you said, there's not much of a target for Selkirk here. He's just going to have to wait for his turn. Maybe he can get some buffs here from there to the student sitting at 5. Also looking to then duel something a little bit bigger if Poisound doesn't deal with it.
Really interesting moment. Chase had the option to use a Zeal charge on Selkirk and take it for value, but I think what he's doing here is he's saying, I kind of just lose to Terror of the Seas. So he's playing to his win conditions. He's saying, you might not have Terror of the Seas. If you do not have Terror of the Seas, I can then buff my Selkirk up a bunch and get even more value from this Selkirk. Instead, Chase decides just to float the Selkirk and then forfeits the game.
Yeah. There it is, Terror of the Seas kind of showing up, and Chase, like you said, realizing that there goes potentially the win con.
Final. Of course, Nekwiz waiting there to try and get into open number 1. And we've got Hyper Thin with a muzzle, with a heat wave, with some locks.
It's going to be interesting to see how this plays out for Poisound. He's dealing with Chase's Syndicate right now, and yeah, a lot of points potential from this list that Poisound is playing. And not too much for Chase to really control, to be fair. It's just like a point slam.
Yeah, and this is also, let's remember, if Chase wins this, it's going to be the final match. The game 5 will be this Nilfgaard deck for Poisound against NR. And it does look like it's got a lot of answers for this NR deck with Muzzle, with Tourney Joust, with locks. So it's certainly going to be a tough ask for Chase to win it, but we also, we don't know how this matchup goes. Alumni's beaten decks that attacked against it before, so we've got a really interesting series. First though, Chase, to get it to that game 5, is going to have to win with his trusty jackpot deck.
Let's see if he can pull it off. Maxi right off the bat, showing Chase what he has in the deck. Poisound, on the other hand, has Best Boy coming out, helping with a little bit of tempo here in round 1. Hoping to probably win it without committing a little bit too much, but I think this hand is looking quite good for Poisound to do it. Of course, there is, we have some leader targets in hand. We do have the Wanderer that Poisound kind of doesn't want to start committing too early, but if you get to that round 2, it's such a big like push potential for Poisound. Like the tempo that Hyperthin can play with the use of leader, Snowdrop, and Dodrake is quite amazing.
Yeah, and Poisound does also have to keep the Sunset Wanderers in mind. He doesn't want to thin it, so it might be incentivized to be playing cards from sort of left to right, like from cards to the left of Sunset Wanderers, might be more of a priority. The 4-point peach here from Chase isn't ticking. Poisound could decide to pass, and say, all right, let's see your points, hit him with a tempo pass of some sort, but he wants round control, and Chase only getting 3 coins of carryover is not ideal, but did also get a maxi through. So knows either the order of his deck or got to thin a little bit and try and shuffle that deck up a little bit.
This is really, really smooth for Poisound, winning this round without much committal at all. Yeah, now you're looking at finding your Snowdrop. You want your leader targets, and to have the potential of really pushing hard. I think you want to put your hyper thin cards, payoff cards back into the deck, potentially looking for a short round 3. And now maybe you're just going for the tempo, trying to push out the good stuff from Syndicate. Because, of course, Syndicate, very strong faction, with a lot of strong tools. Getting something important out here could help.
Yeah, and he's also just drawn a lot of really good cards that you want to find if you're hyper thin. The two most important cards to have in your hand here are going to be, well, there's the Mage Assassin and the Afan. Of course, he only has one Blightmaker, so he's got those in hand to combo with Leader. But the Snowdrop, the Dead Man's Tongue as well, really great cards to have access to here. Being able to just thin your deck from maybe some units you don't want. I think went for the Tourney Joust instead here. And Snowdrop, of course, a card you want to play before your Leader for maximum points.
Yep, there we go. Of course, a Poison coming down here from Chase. It's great value, but then again, Hyper Thin plays so many tall targets that there's going to be enough there that you can't really protect everything. And here we go. Here comes the huge Leader plus Snowdrop tempo that you're going for. To get a little bit more points on your Wanderer, you're looking for all of your Leader targets, which hasn't been found yet.
We had the Mage Assassin from the Blightmaker round 1, so he
never mind.
had access to those. And
right.
Yeah, he decides also, there's also always a decision, Silly, between Snowdrop click first or Leader first. So he plays the Snowdrop and use the Leader first. What this means is the cards, he can choose to shuffle cards to the bottom of the deck. And then Dodric is going to be drawing, well, not necessarily to the bottom, but of course with the Leader, they're guaranteed to the top. And the Dodric Find is the other card you want at this moment as well, Sealy.
Look at this point swing. Like, it is looking pretty good. Of course, Chase is taking his time, setting up that nice bounty, getting some Philippa payoff, maybe going for that freak show soon enough. Now, Poisound has to decide, does he play that Dodric? Does he let the Wanderer come out? Does he continue this push? Or when is it going to end? When are you happy to just take it to that short round? But I do believe you want to see some good stuff from Syndicate before you're leaving.
Sunset Wanderers, the longer the round goes on, the more points it continues to get. Dodric does have a Zeal, so he doesn't usually have Zeal, but there's an agent on the board which gives him Zeal, so he's playing for deploy value here because he's just more points on Snowdrop. He's now put the Golem to the bottom of the deck, which is exactly where you want it, Sealy. Why do you want why is that so good to have that card on the bottom?
Of course, because you have all of your hyper thin payoff cards that are currently sitting in the deck. Poison nicely was able to keep them there, like Yennefer or Triss. And then you're going to go ahead for a short round and just play. Here we see the deck displayed. These cards will really get to utilize all of that payoff from the Golem at the very bottom. You don't want to draw it because you don't want to play it from hand. It needs to be in deck so that you can get all that sweet, sweet payoff off of it from these other cards. So that's exactly what Poison has been able to set up here with that Dodric Seal deal. Very nice.
And it's a big decision here for Poisound as well, because there is a whole bunch of tempo available to him potentially with just a one of these cards played, because Sunset Wanderers is going to be flying out. It's also plus 2 points onto the Snowdrop as well, because you're going to be drawing another card. Decides to lock the Dodric, which I think is a good decision, because this Dodric is also consistency potentially for Chase as well. Sunset Wanderers comes flying out, and that is a big old point gap now.
Yeah. But here comes Freak Show. Of course, there is another lock here for Poison, so that Freak Show can definitely be dealt with. It can be muzzled. There's all kinds of things that Poison can still do. So this Freak Show is just looking to get the max point value out once it hits the board. And that's exactly what it does. Grabs that sweet bounty as well. And takes care of that engine taken for Poison.
Yeah, Chase's decision on his leader ability is really interesting here as well. Decides to just use 1 point of boost on Professor. That's, of course, making the muzzle worse. But also deciding not to plays the Freak Show first and doesn't use the Jackpot passive to put the Freak Show to 6. Because if you put the Freak Show to 6, you're just playing into that muzzle.
And here is a lot of armor, but the Salamandra Mage still getting a nice bit of value working on that tribute power. Yeah, it's not looking too bad. There is a decree for Chase. He can be really flexible with that. Doesn't have to rely on the RNG of the bank to pull you what you really want, but you can just go for whatever is needed. And now Poison does take the pass. He says, all right, this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to get some good stuff out of you. I wanted to play my big points and aim for that short run where all of that Golem payoff will happen.
Chase knows his hand exactly. He's got Muzzle, Heatwave, Vilgefortz, as well as Triss, Yennefer, and Exartheus, all with the Golem guaranteed at the bottom of the deck. That is quite a scary hand indeed.
Yes. Now, we said that Syndicate's short round is very, very good, but hey, so is Hyper Thin. Again, Poison's just continuing the theme of going point slam, but also control, which is quite refreshing to see for Nilfgaard. Yeah, bit of control there. Heatwave, Vilgefortz, and also the point. The points.
Chase's hand is also just looking great, though. The Raw Decree, Siggy being the only real option there. But it does play into the muzzle for maximum muzzle value. The Siggy does have some sort of engine Intimidate. It wasn't going to play for any more points. So a 12-point card, of course, it can be a little bit of control, but still pretty good to see.
That was such a fast muzzle. I was very impressed.
One thing that can be a problem, Sealy, sometimes for this hyper thin deck in a short round is you want to be boosting your cards with Yennefer, but if your opponent has something like a Freak Show left on the board, they can often kill all of your units. So getting that Freak Show in round 2, really nice. Of course, Chase, no leader ability, only have 1 coin carryover, but he does have 2 poisons, he does have Heatwave and Morels, but he's almost got too many of these cards because he's having to poison a 6-point Siggy rather than something like a 17-point Exartheus.
But then again, you have your Morels for something tall, and you have that Heatwave for something tall, and you know it's about to get tall. But that's exactly what Poison's kind of playing around now, trying to kind of minimize the value of those tall removals. He kind of can guess what golds are still available to chase, and just a perfect time really to play this Fistic out, though.
Yeah, Triss only at 6 points is not what you want to see, but at least it does give him a small body to buff with Yennefer. So 15 points on the Morels or the Heatwave here. Of course, Vilgefortz can be used offensively on a Frightener, but that's probably going to be a Heatwave. So you're looking really to be using the Vilgefortz on the Yennefer instead, to be summoning the Golem out from the deck once this Exartheus has been played.
This tall removal really coming in clutch here for Syndicate. We can see just the point slam that Poisound is putting on the board, but getting instantly deleted and really getting a just so good value. This is why they're here. They're here to deal with the tall threats. And here comes the Vilgefortz and Zavala into the Frightener, into the King of Beggars with only a Heatwave left to control that. Like, ooh, the last say is nice, but there's too many units coming down here that you have to deal with.
Yeah, 12 points on the Heatwave, but the 8 body of the Savola, the 3 of the King of Beggars is just too much. And we go into another game, number 5. The Heatwave, the Poisons, the Morels from Chase really, really coming through in this matchup. Poisound, I think, played it fantastically well. He just didn't quite have enough source to get across the line. The hand was too good for Chase there.
Going for the self-wound, a little bit of greedy way of playing SK, but that really, I think, was a great thought. And worked out, at least for Cams.
Yeah, and I mean, Magpie also made it pretty damn far as well. Just he got knocked out by Poisound 3-2 in the last round. And here we go, ladies and gents, another game 5.
All right.
The winner of this gets into the losers final, and there they will meet Nequiz for a place in Gwent Open number 1. Of course, both these players as well will be able to play in the top 64 qualifier, which is taking place next weekend. So they do have more opportunities to qualify for this as well as next month. But there's a knickers in the hand of Poisound, Silly. What is that all about?
That's not a great thing.
That's a very bad boy,
for round 1. Yeah. Hey, look, there's the Triss for round 1 though.
Oh, let's go.
And the Heatwave potentially come down here on the Letitia.
Yeah, so Chase.
Veiled Letitia threat.
Chase definitely having to respect the muzzle, so does decide to use the Crystal Skull. For Poisound, just a 4-point adept. It's not even going to be ticking just yet. No thinning really available, I don't think, either for him. Assault, of course, thinning a card as well. In fact, thinning a couple of cards with John being played. So this Adept is not a good opening play for Poisound at all.
No, just playing left to right, making sure you're getting max value on that Wonder, maybe saving the Heatwave a little bit. I mean, who knows how far Poisound can play, but he definitely has to try, and there is the Heatwave coming down on Letitia. Poisound probably had the room to wiggle a little bit there because, you know, Chase is like, okay, maybe there's no Heatwave, and he doesn't press the Letitia too early. That's exactly what happened. Then the Heatwave comes down, and the lock now stopping this little student from growing. But here's another one.
Yeah, another student, and there is just not an answer that Chase has for this, with the fact that it's chilling here, and at 8 points, using the order from the Marine, you just left it floating on the board, and you can see exactly why Chase likes these Marines, the devotion payoff. There aren't a whole bunch of other cards you want to play that are non-devotion. We've seen some players with Muzzle, Mushy Truffle occasionally is one of the routes to go, but Chase, instead of playing these Siege Masters, maybe just fitting in these Marines, so you can certainly see why he wants to play them. There's so many options for 4 provision bronzes in this NR deck.
Yeah, no muzzle happening there on that student. And taking the pass here while not having developed the student carryover too much, but is in control of the game now. Can go ahead and establish that in round 2 potentially.
Yeah, and I think if you're Poisound, you're happy to see that pass in a weird way, because what you usually see from these alumni decks is they just play down to 4 cards to develop as much carryover as they can, but there just wasn't a Purify for the locked student. There wasn't a way of really replaying any other student, so decides to pass and is probably going to be bleeding in round 2 to try and get some more carryover here.
Yep. Establishing your own carryover and bleeding out the big combo that Poisound has. Now, we're going to have to see how long can Poisound hold on to something like Wanderer or Snowdrop, because those are really such big points, and I don't think Poisound really wants to play them. You ideally hold them for the round 3.
Yeah, but
is Chase going to let him do that? It's a question.
We're at that interesting time in the game of Gwent in round 2 where Chase might bleed. Poisound's not too sure, has to respect it. Chase could also pass if he wants to and just make sure that he has a long round on even cards. And by playing this history, he forces the muzzle, which is obviously a pretty good trade for him. Does decide to continue bleeding though when he sees this student sticks.
Yeah, I do like the fact that you try to get out these big points from Hyperthin. Getting the leader out, at least the Wanderers, like that's a lot of points, even if you have, a lot of points in round 3 yourself as alumni. So I definitely see trying to get this out here. Joust coming in perfectly here on the shielded alumni. Never mind, it doesn't go for that one. It goes for the one that is developing Zeal currently. Makes sense to get that carryover away. The students are what contributes to the carryover, so that one gets jousted instead of the shield. Just got a bit excited because a lot of the time you don't see the shield ability for Joust coming in.
Is this the moment we see the Triss? Triss, there's a bunch of cards in the deck that you don't want to be hitting. Dead Man's Tongue comes through first, maybe just going to clean up some of those units like this Adept that you wouldn't want to play. Could also go for the Lock or the Tourney Joust. In fact, goes for the Tortoise as one of them. And then I imagine probably the Adept as well was the other card to leave that Tourney Joust in the deck, but we'll have to wait and see. Poisound can also go for his leader ability plus Snowdrop for a bunch of points while keeping that Sunset Wanderers in his hand for even longer.
Yeah, that would be quite a bit of big commitment that I'm sure Chase would be very, very happy to see here as... And I was all right, well, Poisound has a very limited way of dealing with this. And so Selkirk does not necessarily need the leader charge, but give me one more card, give me your Wanderer, and that's what Chase gets.
We had a tiny little bit of a internet hiccup, but it was literally about 2 seconds, so we're all good. I panicked a little bit, but we're fine. Bit of a hiccup there. It's an 18-point game as it stands. Selkirk down on the board. Of course, Chase winning round 1. He is sort of dictating how long this round 2 is going to continue to go, and Hyperthin can have some problems as well, where cards like Triss and Yen aren't guaranteed to play for their maximum points. Like, you look at the amount of units that are still in the deck. Knickers is still there as well. He's misbehaving quite a bit. If you're Poisound, you probably just want that card to get out of the deck. But also, if it stays in long enough, it could also just be 3 more points for round 3.
Yeah, this bleed happening from Chase is definitely very efficient. Poisound can't hold on to that Snowdrop forever. He certainly tried. He thought maybe Chase is going to be happy with just seeing this Wanderer, but no, Chase is not. Chase is like, give me more. I want to see your leader. I'm still thinking that it's going to be a bit iffy later. And here it comes. At least Snowdrop. And the missing lock that wasn't able to lock Selkirk as it was hiding in deck still.
Yeah, and the third card as well, just looking quite awkward at the minute as well, with no obvious target for that card. Morvan Vuris, though, is potentially going to give some more options. Does look like the Adept was kept, and imagine this was the Tourney Joust instead. It would have opened up this third card instead. So a little bit surprised to see the Adept was kept over the Tourney Joust as it works out. Does look like a little bit of a misplay
No
from
Afan
Poisound.
either here. Yeah.
And yeah, the
That means
Afan.
you're not getting your leader charges out, and the thinning has not gone according to plan for Poisound. And you've committed your leader. And on top of that, Best Boy's like, oh, you needed my help? Okay, I'm going to come out now. And it's like, I don't know if we need you right now because the point gap is quite big.
Yeah, and there's a really big reason as well. You mentioned that Afan, it's more than it just looks. It's not like you're just missing 5 points, really. Because as you know, the hyper thin situation means there's going to just be that one card extra stuck in the deck. These decks are really built to thin perfectly. One card left. But there's not going to be one card left. There's going to be a couple of cards because this Afan was not thinned and cannot be thinned. We also need to see if Furcart can still be thinning anything as well.
Yeah. Not sure about the deck state, but we've seen most of the specials, I believe. Of course, Dodric can help a little bit here. But is there another special in the deck? That is the question.
One more mulligan available for Poisound. We've got a Siege Ladder having been kept
Right.
for...
Afan.
Yeah, and there's the Afan as well. Can, of course, get rid of it with Dodric. Doesn't have, I don't believe, any agents. The Adept is a nice proactive option that ticks. You can see maybe why he kept it there for. Getting a lock instead of what this Dodric might have been used
And
on.
so much missing from Chase here as well. I don't think we've seen Rafarts.
Yeah.
And there was alumni in the deck. So like the payoff for alumni is like, well, I guess you're not getting it, even though you tried this whole game to set it up. But no alumni in sight.
Yeah,
That's
it's
a
not
marine
ideal.
that Adalia has to go for.
And we saw Cams with Roared Decree, and you can certainly see why that might help as well to just get that vengeance. It got nerfed a few months back. It's no longer 9 provisions where you could get it off Assault, so it is more difficult to find.
Exactly. So definitely not the ideal alumni game either. We're going to have to see what happens here. Here's the Afan.
Oh,
The Afan,
no!
the Afan could, I guess, move itself on top, right? And then
I'm not sure. I don't think you can
with
get it
Star?
with... I don't think
With
you can get
Star?
it with Dodric, yeah, because it puts it to
Okay.
the bottom. But
Right.
There-
Oh, true.
there are some circumstances it can happen with, like, Snowdrop and things like that, but... Yeah, this Furcart is very bricked, isn't it, I think?
It's super bricked. We saw all the cards. We know there's no specials for him. He's going right back to that deck. And what Poisound needs to hope for is just high rolling.
Yeah.
He needs to high roll. He doesn't want the fur card. If he gets the Afan, I mean, he's not happy either. Ideally, the Golem. But it's so fun. It's not the worst one. It's not the fur card.
Oh, it's still so painful, isn't it, though?
Yeah, it is.
And this is the key difference we saw in the previous game. Poisound had access to that Dead Man's Tongue, the Fur Cart into Dead Man's Tongue, the Snowdrop in round 2. He just didn't have that option here. And it's just worked, unfortunately, quite against him. Really quite unlucky to have that Afan so near the bottom of the deck. And it just hasn't quite worked out for him. It's not all over yet, though. The Siege Ladder, certainly not the best play. Just 6 points here. Casting Contest and Gerhardt, the last 2. And it does just look like there's no option either for... practice makes perfect without any bronze mages on the board. So Gerhardt's
This is going to
looking
be
a bit of a
really
weird one.
interesting. The Vilgefortz could be set up to be guaranteed here on the Golem, which is exactly what happened.
Yep.
All right. So Afan goes back, and then Dodric can get the fur cart. No, never mind.
Yeah,
The fur
so
cart's staying there. It's stuck there. The Afan's never coming out.
yeah, I think because you put the fur cart on top, it doesn't count
Yeah.
as Afan moving itself, even though it's
Exactly.
kind of moving there. It's the other card that's basically moving. I
It's
believe,
not the Afan.
unless we're both about to be proved wrong, silly, and maybe it happens.
Well, I guess we'll find out. This is it. Is it gonna work?
I don't think so. It would be cool though.
I don't think so either.
Here we see Triss. Is it going to be 5 damage? Is it going to be 3? It's going to be 5 damage. This Afan is a reveal magnet. And Chase with Gerhardt as the last play. Pact is worth 6. Teleportation is worth 4.
This game is insane.
It looks like it's going to be the Pact as the best option here. 2 leader charges for 4
Wow.
points. And Poisound takes
Wow.
it.
What in the ham sandwich was this game? It was so crazy. Range row lock with a fur card in the hand, high rolling none of those hyper thin targets, but being able to put the golem at the top with the help of Dodric. What a game, Svesi! I don't think anyone expected that. Chase is not happy.